From the very first moment Bob Dylan met Joan Baez, it was evident that he possessed something remarkable. Even at a young age, his talent was undeniable, so mesmerizing that Joan found herself irresistibly drawn to him, as though his voice reached out and pulled her close. She wasn't alone in feeling that pull. The entire audience was captivated, hanging on every note he sang. Yet despite his obvious gift and swift rise to fame, Dylan now stands on the verge of collapse, and Joan knows exactly why. So, who is Joan to Dylan? And how did a career so full of promise end up teetering on the edge? Join us as we explore why even fellow rock legends have grown hesitant to collaborate with Dylan, and delve into the essence of what this rolling thunder is all about. Or perhaps, it's not about anything at all, just something that happened 4 decades ago. Joan Baez first encountered Dylan in 1961, and the impression he made was anything but ordinary. He appeared disheveled, pale, scruffy, and a bit dirty, but the moment he began to sing, everything shifted. That unusual young man was Bob Dylan, and his voice, raw with emotion and authenticity, immediately caught her attention. She sensed he was someone special. By then, Joan was already a prominent figure in the folk scene. She had skyrocketed to fame in 1959 at the Newport Folk Festival, performing alongside Bob Gibson to a wildly enthusiastic crowd. At just 18 years old, her pure, powerful voice and meaningful lyrics had earned her a record deal. Her first 3 albums went gold, and her name was known across the country. In contrast, Dylan was just beginning his journey. Newly arrived in New York City, he was chasing a dream. A friend tipped Baez off about a new talent performing at Gert's Folk City in Greenwich Village. Intrigued, she went to see him. Dylan played Song to Woody, a heartfelt tribute to his idol Woody Guthrie. His performance lacked polish, but it was genuine and deeply affecting. Baez later admitted it moved her to the core. It was simply beautiful. Although she didn't express her thoughts at the time, partly due to her jealous boyfriend sitting beside her, Dylan's music lingered in her mind. Not long afterward, she invited him to join her tour as an opening act and even sing duets with her. Though she was the star, she generously shared the stage with Dylan, recognizing his raw talent and poetic voice. That was the beginning of his ascent. Their harmonies blended with an emotional ease that audiences adored. With Baez's support, Dylan quickly drew attention as the serious young man with a guitar and a message. As Dylan's music evolved, so did his relationship with Baez. Were they simply musical collaborators, or was there something deeper at play? Reflecting on that time, Baez recalled, "I had put his music on, and all of a sudden all that stuff washed away. I cried a lot, and I was left with this gratitude for the time that I'd come into the singing publicly." Still, their connection remained largely centered on music, at least at first. One reason for this was that Dylan was already romantically involved with someone else. In 1961, he met Susie Rotolo at a folk festival in New York City, and their chemistry was immediate. Dylan would later describe her as the most erotic woman he had ever seen, fair-skinned, golden-haired, and full-blooded Italian. The relationship became passionate, and Susie became his muse. She inspired songs like One Too Many Mornings and Tomorrow Is a Long Time, and she even appeared alongside him on the iconic cover of his 1963 album The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. Despite their emotional bond, Susie eventually felt reduced to a supporting role in Dylan's life, just another string on his guitar. Things began to unravel after she returned from a trip to Italy, during which she discovered she was pregnant and had to undergo a painful, illegal abortion. By August 1963, she had moved out of their apartment, marking the end of their romantic relationship. By that point, Dylan and Baez had already embarked on their own affair. More than just musical allies, they became a powerful force in the folk world, united by their passion for activism and social justice. Their joint performance at the 1963 March on Washington, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech, cemented their place as influential voices of a movement. Together, their talent and values resonated with audiences across the country. But as Dylan's popularity surged, he began drifting away from protest songs and leaned more into pop and rock, a shift that strained his connection with Baez. His rapid rise created a distance that was hard to bridge. Baez later confessed that the pace of his fame was overwhelming. This shift marked the beginning of the end for their relationship. Dylan's evolving music and celebrity status pulled him away from their shared ideals and the folk scene that had defined them. Baez wasn't alone in noticing this transformation. Many musicians felt Dylan had veered from his original voice, but how much did it actually affect his career? As a master of defying expectations, Bob Dylan attracted criticism throughout his journey, especially when he made bold stylistic shifts that sparked backlash, even violence. During his time with the band, controversies seemed to follow him. Amidst the civil rights movement, when the U.S. was a nation in turmoil, Dylan sought to emulate Woody Guthrie by using music to confront social and political issues. But not everyone appreciated his approach. Some critics viewed his lyrics as unpatriotic, accusing him of spreading dangerous propaganda. Despite the backlash, Dylan's message still resonated, precisely because he refused to conform. He spoke his truth, and his audience found personal meaning in his words. But things took a drastic turn when he went electric. Fans who once saw him as the voice of their generation felt betrayed. They had expected folk-driven protest songs, not rock-inspired performances that echoed the Rolling Stones. Though tracks like a Rolling Stone became iconic, the shift alienated many loyal fans, who saw it as a kind of musical betrayal. The band, formerly the Hawks and Dylan's backing group, bore the brunt of this discontent. After releasing music from Big Pink, they gained recognition, but the backlash from Dylan's electrified style followed them overseas. In England, as Robbie Robertson recalled, a group of hardcore rock fans confronted them. Their message was blunt and hostile. They didn't approve of Dylan's new sound, and some even demanded, "Give up this Bob Dylan shit." Despite the tension, Dylan had a clear vision. The biggest names in rock were blending different styles, so why should he be criticized for mixing electric guitars with his powerful lyrics? His goal wasn't to please the crowd but to challenge them. Dylan's music was meant to provoke thought, even if that meant losing the very audience that had once supported him. For him, the rebellion against the system was part of the message, proving that an artist's true purpose might be to stir things up, even if it meant facing a backlash from those who had once been his biggest fans. Despite the backlash, a member of Rolling Stone still expressed his respect for Bob Dylan. Who was this person and what did he say? Real recognizes real. In a past interview, Mick Jagger, the lead singer of the Rolling Stones, spoke highly of Bob Dylan, a fellow musical legend. Jagger, known for rarely criticizing other artists, found himself praising Dylan during a conversation in the Netherlands. The subject of aging as a performer came up, and when Dylan's name was mentioned, Jagger didn't hesitate to express his respect for the iconic singer. Jagger shared that despite Dylan being over 60 at the time, he still enjoyed watching his shows. He admired how Dylan managed to put on cohesive, entertaining performances even as he grew older. Jagger explained that Dylan's concerts remained fun and engaging, which spoke to his skill as a performer. The interviewer, however, disagreed with Jagger's assessment of Dylan's voice. While she appreciated Dylan as an artist, she wasn't particularly fond of the way he sang. In response, Jagger quickly defended Dylan's voice. He acknowledged that Dylan's voice was far from conventional. He pointed out that it was never considered one of the great tenors of the time. However, Jagger explained that Dylan's voice had its own unique qualities, including a distinct timbre, strong projection, and the ability to convey emotion. Jagger noted that as singers age, their voices naturally change in tone, pitch, and resonance. He believed there was something special about how Dylan's voice had evolved over the years. This wasn't the first time Jagger had spoken positively of Dylan. In fact, he had shared similar sentiments in more recent years. Jagger recalled how he had been listening to Dylan's music from the early 1960s, when Dylan was still primarily an acoustic folk singer. At the time, Dylan was known for his protest songs and thought-provoking lyrics. Jagger mentioned that he had played Dylan's records at his parents' house, noting how important Dylan's music had been even then. He reflected on how Dylan's lyrics were powerful and relevant. Jagger also commented on how Dylan's delivery was as important as the words themselves. He highlighted how Dylan's voice, accentuation, and the moods he conveyed through his singing added layers of meaning to his songs. Jagger's admiration for Dylan was clear. He recognized Dylan's songwriting talent, even though not everyone could appreciate his distinctive voice. Jagger's words also showed a deep respect for Dylan's ability to connect with audiences despite the natural changes that come with aging. While some might have questioned Dylan's voice, Jagger saw it as an integral part of the artist's appeal and legacy. The Rolling Stones frontman had always been open about his admiration for fellow musicians, and his praise for Dylan shows the mutual respect that often exists among legendary artists. Jagger's comments made it clear that despite any differences in musical style or vocal approach, there was a shared understanding of what it takes to create meaningful and lasting music. Both Jagger and Dylan had left a profound mark on the music world, and their mutual admiration only added to their legacy as two of the greatest musicians of their time. Despite Jagger's approval, Bob Dylan has faced his fair share of critics. Who are some of these critics? A world of critics. Bob Dylan, despite being one of the most influential figures in music, has had his fair share of critics. Several artists and public figures have expressed their disdain for his style, personality, and approach to music. While some may have a deeper reason for their dislike, others simply cannot understand the appeal of Dylan's work. Here are 5 artists who have openly criticized Bob Dylan. Joni Mitchell, known for her deeply personal and acoustic-driven music, often found her work compared to Dylan's. This comparison frustrated Mitchell to no end. She once remarked that Dylan and she were like night and day and did not shy away from calling him inauthentic. According to Mitchell, Dylan was a plagiarist, and his voice and persona were fake. She further criticized him, claiming his music was not unique, stating that he borrowed his voice from old hillbillies and wasn't a gifted guitar player. Mitchell also went so far as to claim that Dylan had invented a character to deliver his songs, a mask of sorts. These harsh words prove Mitchell's frustration with being compared to Dylan and her belief that his success was built on a facade. David Crosby, another musician from the 1960s, also had strong feelings about Dylan. Despite the fact that Dylan had influenced Crosby's own career, while Crosby acknowledged that Dylan had played a significant role in shaping the folk rock genre, he didn't hesitate to criticize his personality. Crosby described Dylan as standoffish, claiming that Dylan didn't let you in. When Crosby asked Dylan where he lived, Dylan's cryptic response was that he had no home. Crosby's words suggest that Dylan was a difficult and closed-off person, unwilling to open up to others. Liam Gallagher, the outspoken lead singer of Oasis, is another artist who has had little love for Dylan. In 2011, Gallagher called Dylan a bit of a miserable, showing just how little he appreciated the legendary musician. While he admitted to liking the song Lay Lady Lay, Gallagher made it clear that Dylan didn't excite him the way other artists did. Gallagher's criticism didn't stop there. He expressed his dislike for artists who play their greatest hits, referring to them as shitbags. It's clear that Gallagher, known for his blunt opinions, did not hold Dylan in high regard. Chris Frantz, the drummer of Talking Heads, also had a personal issue with Dylan, which seemed to stem from an incident involving one of his friends. After Dylan released his book The Philosophy of Modern Song, Frantz took issue with a particular statement in the book where Dylan claimed that Elvis Costello and the Attractions were a better band than any of their contemporaries. Frantz, not one to back down, fired back at Dylan, saying "suck a dick." This remark reflected his frustration with Dylan's dismissive attitude toward other artists and his own personal experiences with the singer. Even literary giants weren't immune to criticizing Bob Dylan. Kurt Vonnegut, the famous author of Slaughterhouse-Five, didn't hold back when discussing his dislike for Dylan. When asked about his musical taste, Vonnegut declared that Dylan was the worst poet alive. He acknowledged that Dylan might have a good line here and there but dismissed the rest of his work as gibberish. Vonnegut's biting words reveal a deep disdain for Dylan's poetry, suggesting that he found it lacking in substance. It's possible that Vonnegut, a master of his own craft, saw Dylan's work as overrated or misunderstood. In the end, these 5 artists and thinkers made it clear that Bob Dylan, while a towering figure in music, has not been universally admired. Whether it's his style, personality, or approach to songwriting, these critics were not afraid to voice their opinions. While many see Dylan as a genius, for others, his music simply doesn't resonate. Nonetheless, these criticisms only add to the complexity of Dylan's legacy, showing that not everyone was captivated by his legendary presence. What do you think? Has Dylan's influence outweighed the criticism, and how has public opinion on his work changed over time? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen, you will enjoy it.